Evening, Erin. Thank you.
A damning picture of Giuliani's role here. Do you have definitive proof that Rudy Giuliani was indeed acting at the direct behest of President Trump?
We do, and it's a great question, and we have established a straight, sharp line between the president and Rudy Giuliani. We have multiple witnesses who have told us that the president told them in the Oval Office on Ukraine, talk to Rudy. We have the establishment of Rudy Giuliani as the president's lawyer, so there's an agency relationship there. So any act that Rudy takes on behalf of the president is an act for the president. Lawyers do not act outside of their client's wishes, but also what Rudy Giuliani was doing for the president is corroborated by the presidential call record. And, what's interesting is in that call record, for all the, concerns that Republicans have raised that this was really about bigger issues like corruption, the president never used the word corruption. He used the word Biden, and he said that word 3 times. And so there is an inseparable line between the two of them.
All right, so this is really important. You're saying that you have the direct line from the President of the United States to Rudy Giuliani loud and clear.
And also the people acting out for the president understood that. So people at the State Department knew that Rudy Giuliani was carrying out the president's policy.
So Kent, in the testimony, the transcript that we are all now seeing today, Congressman, you of course were there. He describes receiving a WhatsApp message from the top diplomat in Ukraine, Bill Taylor. And I want to quote from the testimony. According to what Kent says, quote, Taylor indicated that he had talked to Tim Morrison, and Tim indicated that he had talked to Gordon Sondland, and Gordon had told him, Tim, and Tim told Bill Taylor that he, Gordon, had talked to the president. And POTUS wanted nothing less than President Zelensky to go to the microphone and say investigations, Biden and Clinton. Yes. And the reason I quote this to you is because this sounds like a giant game of telephone, right? Okay. This is what this person said, this person said, this person, who this person said he talked to the president said. But you are saying you've got it directly from the president.
And we also have it directly from Tim Morrison's opening statement, which was released. And it's pretty clear now that, and this was established by Ambassador Sondland's addendum that he released yesterday, that the president told Ambassador Sondland, there's no quid pro quo, but Zelensky has to investigate the Bidens. And so the president can say there's no quid pro quo, but if it looks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, you can say it's not a duck, but it looks a lot like extortion.
So the first 2 witnesses that I know you all plan to call next week publicly, George Tent and Bill Taylor, obviously, who I just mentioned, is the top diplomat in Ukraine. And we've seen the transcript of his testimony, as you referenced. He does say directly he didn't have a conversation with President Trump directly, and certainly not one about a quid pro quo because he didn't talk to him directly. What has made you decide, Congressman, that these are the best 2 witnesses to come out on your first day publicly? Is it just a matter of scheduling, or is it that you do indeed believe that what they have to say, even though they didn't have direct conversations themselves with the president, is the most powerful stuff you've got?
There's serious evidence of a defense dollars for dirt scheme that was being run here, and George Kent saw one part of that scheme, and then Bill Taylor on the ground in Ukraine saw, the other part of that scheme. But Bill Taylor also saw how desperately the Ukrainians needed these dollars, and he'll provide a human element to this. He went to Donbass in eastern Ukraine. He saw the Ukrainians mourning their dead, and he testifies to what it means to have radar equipment, medical equipment, anti-tank systems that can stop the Russians from killing Ukrainians. And every second that this president selfishly held up that aid, those were Ukrainians who were losing their lives.
And of course, we do know the Department of Defense was asked and delivered within a day their analysis, which was that this aid should be released and given, and that it added up in their perspective. Now, Congressman, one person who was in direct contact with the president is the former National Security Advisor, John Bolton. I know you've all asked him to testify. He hasn't yet been subpoenaed. The Washington Post is reporting tonight, Congressman, that Bolton is willing to defy the White House. He's willing to testify if a federal court clears the way. And I know you're waiting for a decision in a test case on this issue involving the former White House counsel, Don McGahn, which could come at the end of the month. But obviously, you're talking about public hearings next week. The end of the month could put this a couple weeks beyond that and completely change your timeline. Is John Bolton necessary?
Yeah, with or without Bolton, we're moving along. We would, of course, welcome his cooperation in this investigation, but we're not going to chase people into the courts any longer. We have very sufficient evidence. But we also have 3 people who worked under Ambassador Bolton who have shown the courage to come forward, to defy the president, and to provide truthful testimony. And so we will move forward with what we have, and we believe right now that that's sufficient.
And you have enough from what you've had behind closed doors already. You can cherry pick.
We have enough to have public hearings, Erin. And again, evidence is not a conclusion. It has to be tested before the public. And what we've learned so far warrants going forward to the public in this inquiry.